From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios, the brand new Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. Is Andre Johnson
Jr.
Do not forget the Jr. It's very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification. For what? When we drop that fire content. And also, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here. It is Wednesday, a big day. We have been waiting and waiting and waiting. Saints schedule day. Come on, it's out now. We got all 17 games for the New Orleans Saints 2025 schedule. Book your flights now, book your tickets now. All your fall plans can now be made. The Saints schedule is here. Before we get into all that, though, how you feeling on this hump day? It's been an interesting week, huh?
It has been an interesting week. It's been an interesting day because we know, like, at about noon last year, we knew the entire Saints schedule. This year was a lot slower, a lot less links. Essentially, the NFL said, look, y'all gonna watch this TV show when we drop the schedule. So it took a little longer. You know, we're filming this podcast a little after 7 p.m., but you know what? We got it now.
It really did take a while. I thought for sure we'd have a lot more leaks. And some of the leaks we got were just from some sources that you just don't see a whole lot of stuff being reported on. So we were a little hesitant to go with some stuff. Actually ended up mostly being right, all the leaks that we saw. But nonetheless, the New Orleans Saints 2025 schedule is out. It's an interesting layout. So we're going to do, bear with us here, Andre, I'm going to have you just week 1 through 18 read off the opponents, home or away, and the time of kickoff.
All right, week 1 in the Superdome against the Arizona Cardinals at noon. Week 2, still in the Dome against the San Francisco 49ers, set September 14th at noon. Week 3, you're going to Seattle for a 3:05 kickoff. Week 4, to Buffalo for a noon kickoff. Week 5, back home in the Dome, going against the New York Football Giants for a noon kickoff. Staying home in Week 6 for a 3:25 kickoff against the New England Patriots. Week 7, you're going on the road again to Chicago to take on the Bears at noon. Week 8, at home in the Dome against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 3 o'clock kickoff. To LA, Week 9, to take on the Rams. That's a 3 o'clock kickoff. Week 10, also on the road, this time in Carolina for a noon kickoff. Week 11, you're not kicking off at all. That's your bye week. Back at home, Week 12 for a 3:30 game against the Falcons. Week 13, on the road in Miami at noon. Staying in Florida, on the road again, Week 14 in Tampa Bay. Week 15, at home, 3:30 game against the Carolina Panthers. Week 16, at home, the New York Jets. Week 17, you go on the road to Tennessee to take on the Titans. And then the last game of the season, on the road to ATL to take on them Dirty Birds.
All right, so that is your New Orleans Saints 2025 schedule. That last week is to be determined in terms of if it's going to be a Saturday or a Sunday. I know they do that now just based off of certain matchups going into the final week of the season. So we'll see. Of course, Andre, that's where we're going to go with the big picture today. The Saints schedule, you laid it out beautifully. I'm going to give my thoughts and you're going to give yours. First and foremost, the number one thing that jumps out more than anything, first time since I've been covering the New Orleans Saints, no primetime games. 17 or 8 possibly, well, I guess 17 straight Sundays or 17 Sundays with one bye week. No Thursday night game, no Sunday night game, no Monday night game, no holiday game, no Christmas game, no Black Friday game, nothing. Just straight Sunday kickoffs, with the exception of the last week against 18. We don't know for sure yet, but let's just be honest. It's going to be a daytime game that day as well.
Unless by some miracle Saints versus Falcons is for the NFC South crown in Week 18, yeah, we'll be in the Dome at noon.
So that is the number one thing that jumps out to me. And why does that jump out to me? Well, because it's been a long time First off, I don't blame the NFL. I really don't.
Right.
I don't blame the NFL. The Saints are simply not box office anymore. They're not big time. They're not prime time. Last few seasons they've been on prime time. They've been embarrassed on prime time television, particularly last year. Green Bay and Denver really comes to mind. They just, not only have they not won, they have not performed well in prime time. They don't have that many box office hits like they used to have with the running and gunning and Drew Brees and Sean Payton and those guys back in the day. So honestly, I can't blame the NFL, but I thought perhaps, because first off, I thought every team had to get a Thursday night game, but then I was corrected with that today. So no Thursday, and actually, well, first-year head coach, a young head coach, may not be the craziest thing, may not be the worst thing in the world to have.
Honestly, yeah.
Just straight daytime games and straight Sunday games for your entire first season. That's number one. Number two, 4 of the first 6 games are at home. Arizona, San Francisco at home, then road, Seattle, Buffalo, then back 2 straight at home, New York Giants, and New England. So you are starting off, again, Kellen Moore, first season as head coach, first ever head coaching opportunity. He's got 4 of his first 6 games in the, hopefully comfortable conditions of Caesars Superdome. I guess we'll find out how good they are doing. Also this, there are 2 teams on that schedule I was terrified of when that game was going to be played. The Buffalo Bills and the Chicago Bears. They catch Buffalo in week 6. Is that still September? That might be September, if not early October.
We've got Buffalo in week 4.
Week 4. Week 4. Buffalo week 4, and then Chicago week 7. So you have mid-October, and what is Buffalo? Is that technically September or is that October?
I think that'll be like early October.
Okay, but basically you avoid the, you know how crazy.
September 28th.
Oh, there you go. So you avoid the possibility of just frigid, inhumane temperatures that none of us want to ever be in. I know I'm not built for cold weather. You're not built for cold weather. I know Deuce McAllis is not built for cold weather. And most of the time, with the exception of that Cleveland game a couple years ago, the Saints have not been built for cold weather. So they avoid cold weather games. Now, I guess the Tennessee game, week 17 at Tennessee, could potentially be a cold-ish weather game. But other than that, it laid out pretty good from a weather standpoint. Also this. Bye week is week 11. That's a good time for a bye week. Not too early, not too late. You want it between weeks 9 and week 12. That's always that sweet spot because you don't want it too early because you take that break, you get that long road at the end. You don't want it too late like in 2022. By the time they got to their break, everybody was injured. You just don't want that. So you want it kind of right in the middle. So week 11 is a good mid-season bye week to sort of take that break, get that rest, get that relaxation. So those were my initial thoughts. I will say this. It very much feels like a last place schedule. It doesn't look all that daunting to me from an opponent standpoint. But that's what you get when you become a last place team in a division, which obviously the Saints were a season ago. But in saying that, every team on their schedule is looking at the Saints saying that's a winnable game for the black and gold. So it is what it is. So all in all, it sucks not being in prime time, but I don't know about y'all. I'm tired of seeing the Saints get embarrassed on primetime. That doesn't mean they would have gotten embarrassed this year in primetime with the new head coach, but they haven't done enough to really be primetime players. I'm okay with that for a year. So that was the biggest thing that stood out. Love the bye week. 4 out of first 6 at home. Avoid the cold weather catastrophe. So all in all, I'm kind of okay with it, Andre. What about you?
You know, I think it's a good schedule just the way that it's laid out. I mean, I have no problem with no primetime games. Kellen Moore, first-year head coach, that means he won't have to deal with any short weeks. He can keep essentially the same routine, the same schedule from week 1 all the way to week 18. That's good for him. Plus, like you said, the primetime games last year were not good games. I mean, Sean Payton coming to the Dome on that Thursday night game.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I have never had less fun.
That was the worst game I've ever been to.
I've mentioned it on this podcast before. Every Monday, or I guess that week it was a Friday, I have to rewatch the games from low angle. Typically, I enjoy it because you get to see the game again from a different angle. Maybe you learn some new things. It was brutal rewatching that game. If you remember, Spencer Rattler started that game. They didn't score a single point until Jake Hayner comes in on the very last possession and leads them down the field for their only touchdown of the game. And then you go to Lambeau Field in Green Bay for a Monday night game later in the season.
That was after the coaching change.
And they got shut out. again, a horrible game to watch. Not fun at all for any football fan, especially for any Saints fan trying to stomach those two games. So I can see why the NFL would look at that team and say, oh yeah, and on top of that, relatively the same roster, plus they're going to have a young quarterback most likely. Yeah, they could play on Sundays at noon. So I get it. I'm not tripping over the no prime
If I'm Kellen Moore,
games.
I'm fine with that.
Exactly.
I'm fine with that. I can keep the same routine the entire season.
And there, like you mentioned, there are tough places to play on this schedule. I'll name 3. You mentioned Chicago, Buffalo. I'm going to throw Seattle in there.
Yes.
Chicago, Buffalo, Seattle. I would much rather go there. Seattle is September 21st, Buffalo September 28th, and Chicago October 19th. I'll take late September and mid-October over trying to go to those places on December 28th. Negative 22 wind chill. I don't want that. You don't want that. Our photog Jeff doesn't want that. Nobody wants that. So I think getting those 3 teams in the first half of the schedule, Seattle week 3, Buffalo week 4, Chicago week 7, being able to play those cold weather games early in the season, that will be a benefit for a Saints team that no matter who's been at the helm, it's always been a Saints team who has struggled in cold weather because this is a hot weather city.
Indoor,
they play
indoor
in the
team.
dome. They don't want to go to Chicago, the frozen tundra, in the winter. So I think that's a win for the Saints. And just looking at how it all, schedules out, I think you've got a good bye week. Down the stretch, you've got some very winnable games down the stretch. I mean, let's say the Saints shock the world and are actually in a position to battle for the NFC South at the end of the season. To close the year, you've got Tampa, Carolina, the New York Jets, the Tennessee Titans, who we assume will be starting a rookie quarterback, and the Atlanta Falcons. 3 divisional games which could have huge sway over who wins the NFC South, plus 2 games against 2 very winnable teams in the Tennessee Titans and the New York Jets. So I think it shapes out well for the Saints from many aspects.
You come back out that bye, like you said, you got Atlanta, you got Miami, then you have Tampa, Carolina, Jets, Tennessee. That's not murderer's row there. I mean, you might be able to finish stronger than you started, because I expect some growing pains early. That's generally how this happens. Rookie head coach, probably going to be a rookie quarterback. I expect frankly, some ugly football early or some tough football early, but I expect them to find their footing at some point after the first 6 games of the season. So by the bye week, that's what might be a good time to kind of settle a little bit and come back with a little more confidence and ready to roll that back half of the season, that back 7 games of the season if you really count it all up. So I've got no qualms about that. I was looking at it, closing out 2 games on the road. That's not the best thing in the world, but you start 2 games at home. Arizona to start things off is an interesting opponent because Arizona probably should be a lot better than the Saints. They are better than the Saints, but I don't know if they're a lot better than the Saints. So I guess my point for saying that is that's not the most overwhelming opponent for a head coach making his debut in Arizona. Like, I checked that off. We'll go down the list right now. I checked that off as a winnable game. I'm not gonna say they're gonna win that game, but that's a winnable game for the Saints. Some other winnable games on this roster, on this schedule. NFC South, look, they're not gonna win out on the NFC South, I don't think. But we've seen this. Every single game is winnable. So keep that in mind when we say this list. I got Arizona. I got the Giants as a winnable game. I got the Patriots at home as a winnable game. Remember, the Giants are at home and possibly starting a rookie. I got at Chicago, brand new head coach. They got a lot of work to do as a winnable game. You got Tampa next. Again, I think I don't think they sweep Tampa, but I think they can split Tampa, so you can count one of the 2. LA, no. Panthers, yes, that's a winnable game. Atlanta, again, that's a winnable game. They may not sweep them, but that's a winnable game. I think Miami's a winnable game because I think they've got the most overrated coach in football in Mike McDaniel. And look, Tua is a guy I think he's settling into middle-class quarterback, frankly. I think that's what he's kind of settled into. Carolina, another winnable game. New York Jets, a winnable game. At Tennessee, a winnable game. And like I said, Atlanta, to close things out, you probably could get 1 out of 2 against Atlanta, who's starting Michael Penix, who I think will be better, but he is, what's he got, like 8 starts under his belt? So it's not like he's got a whole lot of starts under his belt. So they're not, I think I counted up 10 total winnable games or 11 total winnable games. They're not going to win 11 games next year, but at least with the idea of going in, that you have a reasonable chance at success, I think is important for this particular Saints team.
Yeah, you know, I have even more winnable games. And to clarify,
your list, yeah.
Not games that I think they will win, but games where if the Saints play their absolute best football and the team that they're playing does not, the Saints can pick up a win. I'm going with that season opener against the Cardinals. I think that's a winnable game because you got to consider the Dome's going to be rocking. They're going to be excited whether it's Shuck that wins the battle, Rattler who wins the battle. It's going to be, they're going to be happy that a quarterback other than Derek Carr is running out the tunnel. So a lot of excitement in that opening game. Everybody's going to be amped up. It's winnable. Seattle. Week 3, I think that's a winnable game.
On the road. That's their first road game of the season.
Their first road game is going to be in Seattle. Sam Darnold, who I know he was good last year in Minnesota. I'm not sold on Sam Darnold being an above-average quarterback on a consistent basis. You saw what he turned into in the playoffs last year. So I think that's a winnable game against the Seahawks. The Giants, no matter who they start, Russ, Jameis, Jackson Dart, that's a winnable game in New York against New York. The New England Patriots and Drake May. Average rookie season last year from Drake May. You expect a step forward this year, but I think that Patriots team is beatable. At Chicago, I wavered on this one back and forth because I think Chicago has a lot of talent on the roster, but it's going to really ultimately come down to another first-year coach in Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams and how quickly they're able to get things clicking. I think in the best-case scenario, it's a winnable game, so I've got Chicago. I've got Tampa as a winnable game, and I've got every NFC South game as winnable. I think in the NFC South,
so that's 6.
Yeah, you can win any game in the NFC South. We saw it last year. The Saints were on, a 5-game losing streak. Darren Rizzi's first game as a head coach.
And who they beat?
And they beat the Atlanta Falcons at home. Probably the only game last year that you can look at that they won, and you're like, I didn't think they'd win that game. Was that game against the Atlanta Falcons. So I think any game in the NFC South is winnable. And then I'll add on at the end the New York Jets and the Tennessee Titans. So that's, I think, 13 winnable games for me if you're the Saints on this schedule.
See, and we'll probably have another pod on this later, but they're not going to win all those games. We know
not
that.
At all. You'll see how many I predict in a few minutes.
I want to be dead wrong about this team. I want them to shock us all. I want them to surprise us all. I want them to come out on a tear, similar to like 06, where they just new beginnings and everything starts off fantastic and they're able to battle through, and all of a sudden you say, whoa, how did this team get here? I would love that kind of surprise for a change. Hasn't happened in a while. But I do think, reasonably speaking, if Kellen Moore is able to coach this team as currently constructed, in particular with this quarterback room, to 6 wins, 7 wins, I think he would have done an admirable job. And the games I'm going through, where I call winnable, I had 11. If you just give me 50% of those, so what's that? So
5.5.
5.5. So that's my over/under right there. So on the plus side, give me 6. On the downside, give me 5. I think that will be a respectable season for Kellen Moore. Now, if they turn around and they still go like 4-13 or 3-14, I still think we're going to have you're not going to have a good feeling about the season the way it went. Even though some people, many people in the fan base, and those of us covering the team, understand that this could be an ugly season for the Saints. It's just, I think you still want to have a level of respectability where you kind of feel like there's some positive momentum, and I think the 5 to 6 win range would be that for the Saints.
I think it depends how you lose, because I agree with you. If Kellen Moore comes out and goes 7-10, by no means is 7-10 a great record, but when you consider the fact that you're going to have a young quarterback with little or no experience under center, you've got a roster that, if you take a step back and look at it, it's not as talented as many other teams in the league. You've got a lot of holes on your roster right now. You've got a rookie head coach. If you go out there and win 7 games, I think you've done a good job as a building block. Now, if you're 2-15, 3-14, I think it kind of depends how that 3-14 looks, how that 2-15 looks. I think about the Carolina Panthers at the end of last season. At the end of last season, when Bryce Young actually started playing good football, they lost to the Eagles. 1 possession game. I believe it went down to the final possession. They took the Chiefs down to the last possession. The Chiefs had to win with a game-winning field goal. They battled Tampa to the end. They played a really tough game against Tampa. They beat Atlanta, in a game where Bryce Young scored 5 touchdowns. Down the stretch of the Panthers season last year, they lost a lot of games, but you were seeing the flashes from Bryce Young. You were seeing that Chuba Hubbard is rushing well. You're seeing that things are going well. Things are looking up. There's something here. We're just not winning these games. A 4-win season with some games like that, I don't think the fan base is jumping on Kellen Moore because you kind of understand.
Well, I don't think the fan base is going to jump on him.
Yeah, I mean, he'd have to go 0-17,
this is going to be,
1-16
unless they're 0-17,
yeah.
I think this is his year.
Everybody gives
him
his
year.
That 1 year to build.
I don't think they're going to
figure
jump
this
on,
thing
but
out.
I still would like to see
I want to see you
pieces
be
of positive
competitive.
momentum. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I want to see you be competitive. I understand that you're not going to win more games than you lose, most likely, but I don't want to see the Saints go out there and lose 45-10.
No,
I want
right.
to see you be competitive. I want to see flashes that, hey, we've got something here. We just need to build upon it.
There's a couple other things that jumped out about this. So the first 2 road games are interesting because northwest part of the country, northeast part of the country.
That's a lot of travel miles.
So that's like travel to Seattle, and a lot of times on those West Coast games, they go up a day early, come all the way back down, then go all the way back up to Buffalo. I wonder how they handle those travel weeks because that's a lot of travel. That's 2 brutal games back to back, just the way the geography sort of lays out. Some other things we talked about the lack of cold weather games. Seattle can still get rainy.
Yeah.
Very rainy. I went to Seattle. I think it might have been week 3. Was it? No, it wasn't week 3. It was. I had to go back and check, but it was the year with Teddy. We stayed up there all week because they were already on the West Coast with the LA Rams. That's when Drew got hurt. So we went up to Seattle. That game was nasty. It was rainy, and it's a different kind of rain. Here it's like the explosive thunderstorm that kind of come from out of nowhere, and it really gets violent. Over there, it's like a steady mist, and it's just kind of annoying all day long. One of the frankly worst experiences of my life in this business was the year we got to Seattle. They had played Seattle earlier in the year on Monday Night Football. It was 2013. It was the first year SP was back from Bounty Gate. We were up there in January for the playoffs, and it was rainy and it was cold. Miserable. Edwin Good, who now works in news, he was my sports photographer for years. I've never seen him do this in all the time where he had to walk off to like dry his hands off because his hands were like frozen. Yep. And it was just me with the camera, and I'm just looking at no cameraman behind me. It was wild. So that was probably the most miserable. My point bringing that up is Seattle can be, well, it won't be a necessarily cold weather game. It can still be a miserable game because there's always a chance of rain in Seattle.
Another thing I'll point out about the schedule that I just noticed looking at it, you're playing a lot of teams, and this is on the plus side for the Saints, when it comes to winning games, with new or young quarterbacks. As you look down the schedule, Seattle, Sam Darnold is new there. The New York Giants, Jameis and Russ are both new there, and Jackson Dart's a rookie. The Patriots, Drake May is in his second year.
Yeah.
Chicago, Caleb Williams in his second year. Carolina, Bryce Young just in his third year. Atlanta, Michael Penix, second-year quarterback.
2 games like that.
Then you go Carolina again, Bryce Young. Atlanta again, Michael Penix. New York Jets, Justin Fields, who just got there this season, and the Tennessee Titans, who will likely
That's
be
a good point. That's a really good
Cam
point.
Ward. So when it comes to experience or experience with that team, there's a lot of inexperience on the opposite side of the ball for the
So
Saints.
I'm just looking at. I'm gonna go through. So you got. I know you gave a couple where they were going to their second year, but just their first year with that team. Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Justin Fields is 2.
Sam Darnold in Seattle.
Sam Darnold in Seattle. Possibly all of them. Jackson Dart or Russell Wilson in New York.
Right.
And then I'm missing one.
Then you've got the second-year quarterbacks.
And the second-year guys like
New England,
Caleb Williams
Chicago,
and Drake May.
Atlanta. So a lot
So
of
it's like, when you kind of think about it, if you want to be an optimist, you kind of can with this schedule. I mean, you really can be. And I choose to be optimistic because I don't understand how to be any other way, because I don't understand how people go through life thinking any other way without, having an air of positivity in their life. But realistically, I think, what are you going to give this record? If you look at this, what would you say right now their record's going to be?
Well, it's not positive, I'll tell you that. Look, I am going to set my expectations on the floor, and if they pass them up, great. It's excited. Who dat? We all, second lining through the city. If not, we saw this coming. I'm going to say I'm sorry, 4-13. That's what I see when I look at the schedule.
That's not. I mean, that's not unreasonable.
I see wins against the Giants, the Jets, the Titans, and I think they'll steal one in the NFC South.
Earlier, I said between 5 and 6. If I had 11 winnables, if they split that, and it's 5.5, so somewhere between 5 and 6 wins, I think it would be a respectable job by Kellen Moore. I want to choose to believe in Kellen Moore because there's a guy they picked. I like what he does. He's a young, bright offensive mind. I'm very curious to see how he handles things. On my notepad, I have 5 wins, but I just lectured y'all about being an optimist. So I'm going to say a 6 wins, 6-11 team this year. And they come out 6-11. Might be the best of all worlds because you have some positive momentum, some optimism, and you're probably going to hover around a top 10 pick again next year and you'll have you'll have some options there if you have another top 10 pick, but you're also feeling good heading into the year 2 of the Kellen Moore regime. But all in all,
it's a good schedule.
I'm okay. And look, here's the other thing. Here's another thing I wanted to point out. You brought this up. New England at home, Tampa Bay at home, Carolina at home, and Atlanta at home. Unusually high number of 3 or 3:25 late afternoon kickoffs inside the Superdome. It's almost always, if it's not a primetime game, maybe you'll get 1 or 2 where you'll get like a late Fox game, but Saints have 4 3:00 games, late afternoon games at home. That's crazy. And in addition to a couple of the games they have on the West Coast at 3:00, so a lot of 3:00 kickoffs for the Saints this year.
Yeah, that's abnormal because typically, like you said, we only get 1 or 2. We're kind of
and that's even when they were winning. They would only get 1 or 2 that kickoff.
That noon slot. So we'll see how it works out. The silver lining about my 4-13 prediction, that's draft pick number 1, 2, or 3, typically in most years. So
that's gonna be something. How much do they have to get the threshold to not think about quarterback again next year? It's going to be hanging over the story, hanging over the organization.
6-7 wins.
That's going to be in the background pretty much all year.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Saints. All right, we only got a few seconds left here. Let's get out of here. All right, for Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. Thank y'all for watching. We will catch you guys next time on Overtime.